Us tonight for our webinar tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit about all of your cool season crops that you can be starting growing, if not now, hopefully very soon in your area. I know for us, this is great. We are in Oklahoma City, and we've been starting a few of things ourselves. It's been great. I'm very excited for the spring. For those of you just joining us, thank you for joining us. My name is Carrie. My husband Dale and I are the creators of the From Seed to Spoon mobile app. We started gardening back in 2016, and yeah, so this was our backyard, or 15. Ooh, I said the wrong year. 2015, actually. So we started gardening, and you can tell, like, we started small, which is how I always recommend you all doing it. And then, as you can tell, we grew and grew and grew really fast. So in 2018, we transformed our entire backyard pretty much into these raised beds and growing food and flowers and all of that. And it was absolutely amazing. It was a great transition through those few years, and there's a lot to learn. Definitely a learning curve. I feel like we just studied and studied so much. And during that time period, we were like, we definitely need to have an app for this, because we kept like losing books out in the garden or something, and they'd get wet and ruined. So we're like, we need an app. So Dale started teaching himself actually how to code and came up with the first version of the app right here. So if you don't already have the app, you definitely need to make sure that you download that, because it will be super helpful, especially if you are just starting out. It'll walk you through growing over 100 different fruits, vegetables, and herbs, and even a few flowers. It'll be super helpful, give you exact planting dates for growing in your garden and all of that. So I am here. Oh, I can see the chat over off to the side. I see Ashley is from Central Oklahoma as well. So that is where I'm from. I am here in Zone 7 in Central Oklahoma. And it looks like I see a lot of people from all over the country, which is great. See somebody from Colorado and Dallas. We have someone from everywhere. It's great. It's nice to meet you all, and I'm so glad that you guys are all here with us tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking about the best cool season crops to start in your garden. And so far, I have several of these that I'm going to be talking about tonight. Lots of them going right now. But don't worry, if you haven't started, you can still get started pretty much, hopefully, wherever you are. But we'll talk a little bit about how to know. So, the biggest question that everybody always asks is how to know when to start your seeds. So, I definitely had to go and pull app screenshots right here, because this is probably the most important part of the app, for me at least. This is my favorite part, because I can never remember when the last spring frost date is, and then I always have to calculate out what is 2 to 4 weeks before, what is 2 to 4 weeks after. The app just makes it so much simpler. So it'll tell you exact planting dates based on your GPS location. It'll pull the weather data from your closest weather station and then calculate all of that for you and give you exact planting dates. It's amazing. So all you need to do too, I put a few screenshots to show you how to make it a little bit simpler too. You can use the filter up on top and do the plant now section. And then it will show you on the next one. You can see those little tags up on the very top too, the little black tabs that'll say plant indoors now or plant outdoors now, because some things will be much better to start indoors and some things cannot be transplanted, and you definitely need to wait and transplant and just plant them directly outdoors. So that'll help key you in to when to plant and how to plant, all of that. And then we actually have a new feature of the app that just came out really recently. It is that, oh, thanks. Dale's pulling up the app itself up here. So if you guys didn't know, our app is available on app.seedtospoon.net. So if you are just on your laptop or something like that, whenever you want to go in and type in a bunch of information into your garden, you can just pull up the website version of it too. And you can log into your garden and everything there too. So it's super helpful. But that's what's showing up here is the app on the internet right now. So this is the feature I was talking about recently. So this can help make it super simple for you to know when to plant, what you can plant right now. So like I said, it's all pulling your weather data for you. So I went through and I marked a lot of my plants. So pretty much everything that I wanted to plant, I put into my grow box, which used to be our favorites. And so you'll notice that little box right there. So I just clicked through and highlighted them. And then, so I put all those into my grow box. And then I went to this task view in my garden, and it'll show you which ones you can be planting come soon. So you can get prepared, maybe order your seeds, get a head start. And then over here, it'll show you also if you can plant them indoors now, and then you can go through and it'll show you which ones you can start right now indoors. And then also it'll show you the ones that you can plant outside now. So there's actually a few things that I can be planting directly outdoors right now, which is awesome. But I haven't done anything directly outdoors personally yet, but hopefully I will have some going very soon. So that's super exciting, and that's a really great way to go about just knowing exactly how or what to plant and when to plant. It just helps you keep everything organized. So we got a lot of questions about how to know and how to know when to plant everything. So I wanted to make sure that I showed that first, so you know when to plant all of these things that we're going to talk about tonight. And everybody is going to be slightly different. So I highly recommend checking out the app. If you don't have it, make sure you download it so you can go through, see your dates, and know exactly what you can grow now. And I do want to mention as well, at the very end, we're going to be doing a giveaway of some seeds. So make sure you guys stay tuned, because we're going to be giving away a cool season pack. It's a bundle of seeds. So make sure you guys stick around. Comment over here to the side below to enter. It'll be exciting. We'll do that at the very end. So first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about cool season greens. I feel like whenever anybody thinks of growing in the cool season, it's always going to be these types of greens right here. It's going to be the lettuce, the spinach, and kale, all of those. And these are all fantastic to grow in the springtime and the fall too. I don't want to leave that out too. A lot of these we actually planted in the fall, and they're still going. Especially our kale is all still going, and we have some spinach that will be coming back as well, that we planted out this fall, and it'll be coming back this spring. And then we're also going to be planting out new rounds of all of these greens out in our garden, and they love the cool season, but once it gets too warm, they're not going to do really well for you. So I typically recommend making sure you get them out now before it gets too hot. And then some things that I do too is to try and keep them somewhat shaded, maybe from some afternoon sun, especially if you want to extend their growing season a little bit. So things like spinach and lettuce, the things that are a little bit more sensitive, I try to baby along a little bit so I can plant them now and hopefully have them somewhat into the warmer season as well. But these are just some of the most common greens that are grown. And they taste amazing. So I always recommend to try and harvest them whenever it's cooler outside or the morning time, because they tend to be more crunchy and taste better. I love that. They tend to get a little bit bitter once it gets warmer. So I try to stick with harvesting them whenever it's cooler. And then a trick too, whenever you harvest them, I always bring them inside and I put them immediately into an ice cold bath, and that makes them super crunchy and really tasty. I absolutely love them that way. So that's what I always try and do just to help get that little extra crunch whenever you're eating your greens indoors. Amazing. Love it. So those greens and these ones right here all can be started indoors, or they can be started outdoors as well. So a little bit of both. So these veggies right here, I want to make sure that I mention because these are ones that I feel like a lot of people think of when they think of springtime growing, and it's going to be these cruciferous veggies. So these are all members of the brassica family. Now, this is not all of them, and of course, some of the greens, things like the kale from the previous slide, like that would fall under this category too, but we already talked about that. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned these. So broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and then cauliflower. And one thing I wanted to make sure I talked about was kohlrabi. If you haven't heard of kohlrabi before, it is really tasty. It is very similar to broccoli, is how I usually describe it. And it's really cool shaped. As you can see, it has like this little like tennis ball shaped thing that's on the soil, and when you harvest it when it's about the tennis ball size and you eat that ball itself, and the entire plant is edible. You can eat all the leaves off of it as well. And they are super tasty. And I've actually gone through and started each one of these plants right now inside. I have all of these growing right now inside of our biodome. There are so many different varieties, and I absolutely love them. I have I actually have like a purple sprouting broccoli that I'm really excited about. I love doing the sprouting broccolis in instead of like the head broccolis just because I can get a harvest faster typically. And if I do have something like a spring storm, especially here in central Oklahoma, we get a lot of random severe weather where we have lots of hail or something like that, and it never fails that something happens to the head of broccoli that I have been babying along this whole time. So I like to do things like the broccoli sprouts so that way I can harvest as they grow, and they're super tasty, and even the leaves taste really really good, especially stir fried tastes absolutely amazing. And then I have all sorts of really cool varieties as well going. I actually have like a red enforcer cabbage growing, and it only has two true leaves, but those leaves are red. It is so cool. I'm so excited about it. I actually just posted a picture on Instagram of it because I was so excited for how pretty it was. So, if you aren't following us on Instagram, make sure you do because we're always posting pictures and videos and all of that from our garden or from our seed starting area, all of that. Okay, so all of these right here, and then these flowers are ones that are great to start indoors. And these are just a few of my favorite spring flowers. Of course, there are so many. There are countless flowers that thrive in the springtime. But these were just a few of the really good ones that I wanted to mention too, because these are really good companion plants too. So things like marigolds, pansies, and zinnias, they're going to be really good at bringing in beneficial insects to your garden and just helping your plants around. Um, if you missed our last webinar just a couple weeks ago, we have it recorded on our YouTube channel here, and you can check it out. We talked all about companion plants, especially like we talked a lot about flowers too. So, because there are quite a few flowers that are really beneficial if you're going to be growing food or if you just want them for beauty. Either way, these ones are fantastic to grow. These are good ones to start. You can start these indoors or outdoors too. If you're going to be starting them outdoors, I would wait. Well, I would wait if you're in my area at least. But again, check the app. The marigolds are in the app because technically marigolds are edible too. In case you didn't know that, there's a fun fact for you. So a lot of these are really great to be growing into your garden, whether you're growing food or just for the fun of it. So, like I mentioned, all of those ones are really great ones to start indoors. And I always start all of my seeds into our park seed biodome. It is super helpful and amazing. I actually just started using this about a year ago because I hadn't heard of it beforehand. And we always use just the standard seed starting trays. And I was amazed at the difference whenever I got this in the mail. And I was like, wow, what have I been doing all these years? Because those other ones have just fallen apart. They're so flimsy. They don't like if you try and put any water in them, you can't move them at all because they just rip and break. Oh, I hated them, but they would hardly even last one time using them, I feel like. But these biodomes, we've used them now several times and they are absolutely incredible. Tray is super sturdy. The dome part is amazing, keeps these plant or these seeds really humid, gives them an amazing environment to germinate in. And I've had such a great success with these seeds sprouting in them. I used to always put in at least 2, sometimes 3 seeds per spot, and I started whenever I first got it, I started doing that still because it's habit, and then I started doing that, and I was having to thin down so much because every single one was sprouting, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I only need to put 1 in each hole, I'm good." So it's really great, super sturdy. In fact, we had a fun video actually that we posted. Maybe we oh, you did post it. Thank you. He put a link to it in the comment section over here. We had some of our animals go through and test out the biodome and see how good it was. It was really fun. We had a chicken standing on it. We had a cat. We had a dog because, I mean, honestly, we have had chickens break into our seed starting area in the garage, as well as cats. I feel like our cats all the time. They're just sleeping on top of it. Maybe they just love it. I don't know. But they're fantastic. They are super durable. Even our dog, I mean, I don't know what she weighed, maybe like 50 pounds or so. Even though she was a puppy, she's still huge because she's a Great Pyrenees, and she was just standing on top of it, not even budging. It was great. But anyways, that the biodome is incredible. I love it. Highly recommend it. Check it out. Um, and then if you are going to be growing indoors too, I always recommend doing a grow light. Just because if you do try and do a sunny window, it can be difficult to prevent your seeds from being leggy, which is when they grow a little too far and then they start leaning and reaching towards the sun, and they're just super weak and they don't grow well if you have them like that. So I always recommend doing some sort of grow light so that way you can keep the light right on top of your seeds. And it doesn't have to be anything super fancy like an official grow light. We in our I should have put a picture of it up here. I'm sorry, but in our shop area we have a setup of just a rack with a bunch of different shop lights that are hanging, and it those the shop lights work fantastic just for germinating the seeds. And you don't need an actual grow light if you are going to be going through and just using it for germination. As long as you're not growing it to fruit or anything like that, you are good to use just like a standard light. So we do a lot of those. Okay. So, yes, just like what we were talking about with Courtney. So, grow lights are confusing. Absolutely. As far as color and strength to use for flowers and veggies, I completely understand. And this is a super common question. So, kind of like I was saying, as long as you're not growing all the way to fruit, so you don't want your plants to grow the entire time indoors, you don't necessarily have to do an actual grow light. You're good with just a strong like shop light or LED light, something like that. And just put those directly over top of it and your seeds will germinate and they will do really well. And they'll do great until you transplant them outdoors. So you don't necessarily have to do and spend a whole bunch of money on it. Oh, Elaine would love to hear more about shop lights. So, I mean, really, all we did, we got a bunch off of, I think it was like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace one time. We got a whole bunch of them from somebody used, which was great. But really, they're super cheap anywhere you buy them. They're not very expensive from like Walmart, Harbor Freight, places like that. I mean, you can buy shop lights pretty good. Oh, and one thing I will recommend too, if you're doing shop lights or anything like that, get these adjustable little levers that you can use. And we have a link. Can you pull up the link for it? Cool. He's going to put the link for it. So they actually have some of these at Park Seed because they're incredible. I have them, and it makes it super easy to adjust and move the lights up and down as you need. So that way you can put the seeds down really close to your seedlings, and then as they grow, you can move it up just easily. Um, I definitely recommend checking those out. It is, I mean, it's something really small, but it can be so helpful. It has saved me so much time and effort and all of that. Okay, this is a great question. So, do you need a heat mat with the light? So, for these cool season crops that I'm actually going and starting right now, um, I don't use any sort of heat mats or anything like that. I typically just use heat mats for tomatoes and peppers and things that are warm season that I'm trying to germinate. It just helps them germinate a little bit faster. I try to keep it as simple as possible. That way, everything is easier. So you don't necessarily need a heat lamp or sorry, a heat mat for growing any of your cool season crops. You'll be just fine. Okay, so some other plants that I wanted to talk about. It is a fantastic time. This cool season and spring is a great time to plant herbs out. And again, these are not all of the herbs. These are just the ones that I could fit on the page. There are probably so many on here that I did not even put. I can think cilantro is missing on here. There's quite a bit, I'm sure. But there's a lot of herbs that are really good to grow in the cool season. And these include things like parsley, sage, thyme, oregano, rosemary, dill, all of that. And again, I do want to mention if you didn't watch that companion webinar, you definitely need to check it out because I talked again in depth about all of these herbs because herbs are an amazing companion plant. They help out your other plants in the garden so much. They help to bring in beneficial insects. They also help repel certain pests, especially dill. I always feel like dill is super underrated. It's been one of my most recent favorite companion plants that I've done this last season just because I felt like it did so much for me. I absolutely loved it. And a lot of these herbs too, if we want to go to the next slide, can be propagated. And what I mean by that is you can go through, and this is Dale up here. He's going through and harvesting some of our herbs, and he just cuts it at the base. So pretty much anything that is that has like that woody-ish stem, you can go through, but you don't want it to be too woody and hard. So you just go through and cut some off, as you can kind of see in these pictures right here. Take off the leaves from the very bottom, and then I like to dip it into this rooting hormone right here, and then we just pop it into, I mean, really anywhere you can put it into while it grows some roots down on the bottom. And honestly, the biodome again is going to be your best friend if you want to do something like this because it will really help create the perfect environment and really help for all of those herbs to propagate and do really well. So it's amazing because one herb plant can turn into so many other herbs. That's one of the great things about herbs. I absolutely love them. Okay, so we also have some cool season root crops. So these are ones that are going to be ones that you want to start directly by seed outdoors. And again, make sure you check out the app to know exactly when you can go about planting some of these because it's going to be different in every area. And the app will calculate out the exact days that you can go out and plant it out. So I have garlic and onions pulled off to the side because they're a little bit different, especially garlic. So garlic is one that pretty much you have to plant it in the fall, but because it does require having that really cold freeze and really cold temperatures in order for it to really do well and grow really well in the spring to get a good harvest in the spring, summertime. But There are ways to go about tricking garlic, which I am going to have to do this year because we were in the process of moving a bunch of our garden areas this fall, so I didn't get the chance to plant out our garlic. So, I'm going to go through and I'm going to try and trick it to think that it went through a freeze. So, what I'm going to do is go through, pull up a Ziploc baggie, put some soil in it, and then some garlic, and then I'm gonna pop it into the freezer for a while. And that way, for just like a couple weeks or so. and and that way I can kind of trick it to make it um to make it think that it went through a freeze. So it's amazing. I trick it, do that, then bring it outdoors, plant it, and then it thinks that it went through the winter and it'll do really well. So I'm going to be making a video all about that as well too. But I did want to make sure that I mentioned that because you may yeah, cuz garlic you definitely want to try doing something along those lines. And then, of course, these cool season root crops are fantastic to grow. We got carrots, beets, radish, parsnips. I love parsnips. And these are all really good. Again, these are really good companion plants too. They are really good by breaking up the soil and they can help to aerate the soil, making the other plants next to it get more water, more nutrients because fertilizers can get to it. It just works really well. And they also, especially things like carrots, they go really well with things like tomatoes, which is weird, I know, because they're different seasons, but the tomato can also provide like shelter for it, which it can help to extend the growing season because the carrots are somewhat shaded from the tomatoes. So they do make really great good companions with other ones. And I do wanna mention too, like, things like radish, super helpful for, I mean, it's a super great beginner one. So if you are just getting started or if you have kids growing with you, I always recommend starting with radish just because it's the one that can go really fast. Sometimes they can go in as little as, like, 3 weeks, which is absolutely amazing. So you get a harvest really fast. They're typically pretty successful and pretty easy. I mean, there are things that can go wrong with them, but it's generally going to be one of the easier ones. And there are some really fun ones that have like different colors. And so kids get really excited whenever there's like rainbows. We have we had one, it was like a gourmet radish blend from Parks, and, oh, it was amazing. It was so pretty. The kids loved going through and harvesting them, and they were every single time holding out, they're like, "It's a pink one. It's a white one." They were just so excited because we had just a variety of a bunch of different colors, and it's something that's really fun to do with the kids. And while I'm mentioning that, there's also rainbow carrots too, which that's fun also. That's probably my favorite carrots to do. I absolutely love them. Really fun. Oh, and I didn't say anything about onions. Onions are fantastic to grow also. They're probably one of my favorite companion plant. We use them all the time as companions. We go through and plant them just around all of our beds. So that way it's almost like a fence against all of the pests. And they don't want to go past the line of onions that we have around all of our other plants. So onions work great as a companion plant, and of course, you get onions from it. It's amazing. And I do want to mention, I didn't mention with on the herbs slide, I didn't talk about chives at all. But chives are another really great plant that I love to grow. It's a really, really fun one. It's typically easy and it will spread and take over. So it is absolutely incredible. Chives are really great to use for green onions. So you have like the top parts that you can eat. Whereas with onions, you don't necessarily really want to cut off the tops because it can stunt the growth of your onion down below. So typically, you don't really want to cut the tops off of the onion. And we just cut the tops off for the chives. So we like to have both of them. So that way we have some of the onions and then some of the chives as well. And then peas. Peas are another one that you'll want to start directly outdoors. And peas are probably Peas are one of my favorite things to grow, and the kids absolutely love the peas. It's so tasty. Just going out and picking a pea off the vine, I just eat them directly from the garden. Even the kids do. It's amazing. Um, the thing with peas, though, you're definitely going to need some space, and you'll need a some sort of trellis for them to climb. Now, there are some compact sizes that they have that you can do instead. Like there's dwarf ones. I think the dwarf snow peas ones do really well, and they were super tasty. I had really good success with them last year. But pretty much every variety of peas I absolutely love. They are super tasty. Absolutely love them. And we build all sorts of different types of trellises. This one up top is probably my favorite one because it is an arch trellis and it was super easy to make. All we did was take some T-posts and put them into the ground and then take a cattle panel and arch it against those T-posts and then just put a couple zip ties on the side to attach it. And then the peas just will take over the entire thing. Peas and beans and all any sort of vining plant do really well. And looks like we have he's posting a bunch of different trellis videos in the chat for you. I've made lots of videos along the way of how to make them or our different types of trellises that we use and all of that. So make sure you check out the chat over here of some of the different trellises that we use as well. So, one thing that I did notice we got lots of questions for in the registration also was about how to prepare your garden space in the springtime. In particular, there were two things in particular that I noticed seemed to get everybody was preparing your garden space, about how to pop up. So if you're missing soil, which happens all the time, seems like it just disappears out of thin air sometimes. But what I do whenever I go out and I'm about to start planting, I go through and any sort of pots or raised beds, anything like that, that seems to be missing soil or is lower than I want it to be, I go through and add compost to the top of them. And then I will go through, I'll add some fresh compost, I will mix it all in, and that gets it all prepared with fresh compost, gets it really healthy, and it also tops it off and last a makes it fill up a little bit better. Um, Another question I got was about fertilizers for planting in the spring. And I do want to make sure that I mention these two different fertilizers and these are both so Espoma and Happy Frog. They're both probably they're both really good. One of my favorites. We use them all the time because they are made with all organic materials, and we can. I mean, it's all really great stuff that's in it, locally made in the United States, and I absolutely love them. They're not super expensive. I know somebody was asking about cheaper solutions for fertilizers. Espoma and Happy Frog are not super expensive, and I know actually Park Seed has a sale. I think all of our Espoma fertilizers. I think Happy Frog's on sale too. So check it out on Park. I'm pretty sure that they are all pretty marked down pretty good. So make sure you check that out. So, just some tips too for planting outdoors. I know that we had a few people talking about to the off to the side in the chat about how difficult carrots were to germinate. And I 100% agree. Carrots can be one of the most finicky things. Oh, look at this. Wow, Ashley. Yes. Oh, she learned it from us. That's great. Thank you, Ashley. And she's spreading the word and sharing it with others. That's awesome. So, yes, up here up top, you'll see a picture of me putting down some burlap on top of our carrot seeds that we had actually just planted up there. So, it makes it a lot better because you can protect the seeds and it also helps to keep them moist. So I go through, I plant it out, I make sure the soil is already moist, and then I put the burlap on top and I water in that burlap as well. And then I just come through, peek under the burlap, make sure that my seeds haven't sprouted. Every couple days, pop in there, see if I need to water anymore. But it really helps to keep those seeds moist and also to protect your seeds if you have any unwanted pests, especially cats, things like that. Um, but this can really help. The biggest thing you just don't want to you want to make sure you take it off before your plants sprout too much. So as soon as you see them sprouting, go ahead and take it off. But carrots in particular, this is super helpful for because it can take a while to germinate for them. So I this is one that I typically do for carrots especially just because it can have a longer germination period and it can be hard to keep them moist for that long. So, definitely wanted to make sure that I mentioned that as a trick for planting outdoors. And then also, I did want to mention too, because we have a lot of plants that we're going to be transplanting outdoors, as well as some others might be whether you buy transplants or you make them yourself by growing them and starting them yourself by seed. You'll be transplanting at one point. So I wanted to mention make sure you always do what's called hardening off. And I have a full length video all about hardening off. But as a just a high level, hardening off is just really where you go through a process over typically about a week where you put them outside little by little, giving them just a little bit more sun and a little bit more um, elements that you're exposing them to each day. So I start just by a couple hours a day in the beginning and add just a couple hours every single day and gradually increasing the sun amount that it's getting until it's ready to go and it's ready to be planted in the place it's going to be living. So it just helps to acclimate it from its babied in temperatures and environment that it's used to inside to the wild outdoors, especially here in Oklahoma, definitely. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that I saved time because I know I tried to go through and answer everybody's questions when they registered. Tried to go through and try and built it into the slides that I made. But if anybody else has any other questions that they want to pop in before we do the giveaway. Um, oh, and if you guys have not heard of Growbot is awesome. Growbot is part of our app. On the bottom corner, you'll notice that it says Growbot. You can click on Growbot and ask any sort of questions that you have too. So I want to make sure that I mention this because you can ask Growbot any of these questions also. So if I don't get to everybody's questions tonight, or if you're watching this after the fact and you have a question, make sure you go to the app, go to that bottom corner, and ask Growbot. And Growbot can give you really great advice a lot of the time. Oh, you're answering a question with Growbot. Look at you go. Okay. Let's see what I can't read what Growbot says. I can't see that. I definitely would have recommended something along those lines. Should all seeds be kept moist until they sprout? So, yeah, I would definitely recommend always keeping your seeds moist. If you plant them out in the garden, you need to make sure that you're keeping them watered. I mean, again, moist, not like wet. You don't want them wet, but yes, definitely keep them moist until they sprout. Can you grow Swiss chard in a raised garden bed? Absolutely. Yes. That's pretty much how I always grow all of my things here. We have a lot of raised beds and especially smart pots. I don't know if you've ever heard of smart pots before, but those are just fabric raised beds. They have all sorts of different sizes from 1 gallon all the way up to like the 100-gallon ones, which are these huge round raised beds, which are like almost like 4 feet in diameter. They're amazing. I absolutely love them. They're super strong, super durable, and our plants just thrive in them. So I absolutely, this is pretty much how I always grow our Swiss chard. I always plant them in either one of our raised beds, wooden raised beds, or fabric raised beds, or you can grow it in the ground. You can pretty much grow Swiss chard however you want. Do you recommend adding worm castings to seed starter? Yes, absolutely. If you have access to worm castings, I would absolutely use that for seed starting. That stuff is pure gold. Worm castings are amazing. Okay. So, sorry, I'm going to have to read this from Stephanie. She's done stock tank gardens last year because she's older and bending over and getting up from the ground is very hard. I understand. Um, Arden was horrible. I thought it was due to 3-digit heat. Whew. Do you recommend any suggestions for stock tank planting? So, the biggest thing I would recommend would be probably mulching. Really good, especially with that 3-digit heat that you had. That would really help to keep your plants cool, and it would help to keep them a little bit protected. It would keep them cooler and moist, all of that. So I think mulching would really help you, putting some mulch around that base of the plant. So you can even use something like leaves or um, I mean, we've used all sorts of things like pine shavings. Yeah, I mean, you can use anything. Okay, Melissa wants to know vertical gardening. Any plants good for that? Absolutely. So we do a lot of vertical growing. Just to help with a lot of our other plants too, because they can be a living shade wall. It can help be a windbreak, all of that. And it can be a really good space saver for a lot of things too. So we do a lot of vertical growing. Things that we talked about today, obviously those peas would be fantastic for it. I don't think we talked much about anything else for springtime that would be good for vertical growing, but there's definitely a lot of flowers that you could do, some vining flowers that you could put out for springtime. But it's not going to be too much longer before you can grow things like cantaloupe, melon, pumpkin, cucumber, beans, things like that. And yeah, you'll have a lot of really good plants that you can vine and trellis over them. Awesome. Okay, who's ready for a giveaway? Okay, drum roll, everybody. We have a winner. It is Jennifer McAllister. Congratulations, Jennifer. You have won the Parks Cool Season Vegetable Seed Collection. It's a collection of 5 different seeds that you'll get. It is awesome. I personally grow like pretty much every single one of those, so I think you'll do really great with them. So, Jennifer, all you need to do is just email us at, email me right there at carrie@seedtospoon.net, and we'll get your address and send this seed pack out to you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. This was super fun. And we do these every 2 weeks. We've been doing a live stream of some sort, either in the evening time or sometimes at lunchtime. So we'll send out notifications. Make sure you follow us on social media too, because I'll post daily things all through there. And so make sure that you're following us there. Oh, thanks so much, Sandra. The app's helped her through starting a lot this year. I'm so glad it's been helpful for you. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, well, that's so amazing. I love that, just throwing out seeds and seeing what happens. That's kind of like how we started. We're just like, let's throw out some seeds and see if they grow." Yeah, that's always amazing to do. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you joining us, and I hope that you'll all join us next time. Thank you. Bye.